Oh, thank you.
And Carla's the only one missing, right?
Good morning, Don.
Good morning, thank you.
Good morning, it's Kim Martell.
Good morning.
Taking care of crap.
Hi, Sheriff.
Hello.
Hello.
Okay, we'll open today's meeting July 31st of the Beaverhead County City Board of Health. And we'll start with those on the conference call. Anybody on they haven't announced their name that's on the Board of Health?
Yeah, Carla's here.
Okay, thanks, Carla.
Excellent, thank you.
Okay, that's 7, I believe. Is that 100%?
Yes.
Okay, now, as far as the technical people, the ones that, anybody else on the conference call, other than that hasn't announced their name?
Lainey Jones, I'm here.
Oh, lady, okay, excellent.
Okay,
Lilia and Karen.
Lilia in here, okay. Yeah.
anybody else on the conference call that hasn't announced their name?
Todd Hazelmaker.
Who's that?
Yeah.
Some creepy guy.
Yeah. The real creepy guy.
Did you hear that?
Okay, is there anybody else on the conference call? Hearing none, now,
I'm a guy who's gonna do it to me.
Yeah, we got you, Donnie, thank you.
okay, as
We
far as
also have Joey Brogan.
Joan Grogan's on there.
Joan, okay.
Thank you. One more time, is there anybody else on the conference call that hasn't announced their name? Okay.
I have it, Jenny McNulty at the University of Montana Western.
Can you say your name again?
Jenny McNulty.
Okay.
She's the new provost.
Okay, is there one more that I heard?
Randy Ferenczi.
Randy.
Sam. Z is in zebra. E-O-E-N.
E-N-T?
Charlie Sam Echo.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Anyone else hasn't spoke up on the conference call? Okay, I see Tom Wagonette's here under technical advisor, correct?
Right.
Any other buddy in the room that's technical advisor? Seeing none. Okay. We've established a quorum for sure, 100%. Thank you for coming. Next, first on the agenda is a COVID update. Somebody, Megan or Sue, would you give us that?
I haven't done this.
I know that we have, they're getting changed like constantly, but I know we have 44 cases, total cases, and active, I don't want to say because I'm not sure, but we have 44 cases.
But there are
We've
more
had
than
four
active.
We've had 4 total hospitalizations. Right now we have 2 current hospitalizations. I'm sorry, what did you?
But we have more than 4 active cases.
Oh, absolutely, yes, we're probably closer.
Just to
What,
go on record.
20 active is what you're saying?
Close to, I'm not gonna say exact number because I don't.
Plus or minus 20.
But, oh yes, way more than 4.
Okay. Is there anything else on the COVID update from anyone? If anybody on the conference call has some information about any of the topics, please speak up. Okay, next,
Can I ask a question?
please.
Sarah Hartman.
Yes.
I was just curious, you know, we get these numbers for COVID, and I appreciate it a lot, because I think it helps us to start to formulate what's going on. I'm also wondering, just as an overall Board of Health, is there a way to give us some perspective as far as other things that are affecting the health of Beaverhead County?
I leave that for Megan and Sue.
What do you need, Sarah? Yeah, specific.
Last time we were here, the coroner mentioned that on average, Beaverhead County has 75 deaths. And this year, I think through like the 15th of July, we already had 60. So I'm trying to not, I don't know exactly what I'm asking. I guess what I'm trying to get at is that I appreciate that you guys are so forthcoming with this COVID information. But I'm starting to wonder why we are so focused on just that one thing versus maybe some more general information about what else is affecting the health of people in Beaverhead County. Because I'm afraid that we're creating a system that is just, people are just sitting there watching instead of starting to figure out how to actually function in a COVID world. And I don't know, I have a friend who's attending a funeral today for a cousin who committed suicide. We have friends who are, you know, with their mom who is having surgery for cancer. I mean, we've got a lot of other things that are affecting the health of our community members that maybe this isn't the appropriate time in the meeting, maybe this is COVID specific. But I guess I'm just curious if there's more statistic that we could share about what's affecting our community members. That's what I get.
Okay.
I mean, that's something that the state does. I mean, they track all those communicable diseases all the time. The report for influenza from this last season isn't ready yet.
Okay.
It just takes them a while, but if you look on the CDC website, you can actually dive deep into a lot of those numbers.
Okay, so the CDC website,
Well, sorry, excuse me, the Montana DPHHS.
say that again?
Montana DPHHS, or Department of Public Health and Human Services.
Okay,
Because I've looked at it myself too, to just look at like what's a comparable influenza season. And they have seasons going back, they have cumulative reports.
okay,
And they have nice graphs that help you understand things.
okay,
I don't know that I've seen a great summary of like suicide rates.
okay,
Our county is unfortunately usually one of the highest.
right,
But I don't know a number as far as like during this pandemic. I haven't seen a comparable numbers like from last year or anything like that so far. But I think we're aware of those concerns for sure and share them with you.
okay.
Mayor?
Also, if you go on CDC, actually COVID is not any way close to the highest death rate. I mean, people die of automobile accidents, people die of a lot of things. Suicide's one of them. Now with COVID, it's not directly linked to COVID. People now are afraid because the media scared them on COVID, that now they won't come in and get tested or get treated because they're afraid they're going to catch COVID and die, because they're being told if you get it, you're going to die. It's still out there. And so you have all that problems going on. You know, and one of them we're going to be talking about today, kids. So there's a lot. There's a lot in the CDC. If you look on there, there's a lot of data
Okay,
on all different types of deaths. I have them. I just printed off today from the CDC site.
and is it
On
mostly
kids.
Montana, like state specific, or is there a way to see like counties, or is it just,
All I can see is you got nationwide.
okay,
They can do some states. I'm not sure if CDC, the big website has any counties, but you have to go to the state, our state website to get the county specific data. And they have all of that stuff, all of the different types of way people have died, you know, in there. And really, like for kids, COVID is way low on the list for how they're dying. They're dying from a lot of other stuff. You know, not that I like any deaths, and I'm not celebrating any, I'm just
Right.
trying to answer your question.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think that's the main thing is just, I know when you call in school and you tell the secretary that your kid is sick, and they say, well, what's going on, you let them know, then they can tell you, hey, you know, that's going around, or there's this other thing it might be, or, I guess just that community, awareness that there's other things that are affecting us too, and I just fear that, releasing just very specific, you know, data is instilling fear in people instead of education. So maybe, we could, yeah, I'll dig into more of those things, but thank you.
Okay. Please, come forward.
Stephanie Osborne. I just have a couple questions on the topic of reporting COVID. And I don't know who it necessarily is directed, who it's directed to. My question is, and I know you guys are working super hard at posting updates, and that's greatly appreciated, and you know, people are watching for that and looking for that. There's a couple things. Is I think that the definition of active and hospitalization is, somebody can take that word and run with it. There's been no, if we could get kind of is there a definition of what an active case, and then definition of when you say hospitalized, what exactly that means in the sense of, is they walk through the hospital door, so you have to count that, or, you know, just without, you know, I don't, HIPAA, or without violating that, allow the public to know, since you are releasing that there are hospitalizations and actives, say what active is, what hospitalization is.
Yeah,
Just to-
absolutely, because it's been very confusing, and people are trying to do their own calculations, and they can't figure it out, and so, yes, we could do that, that's a good point.
And do you guys have those definitions, or is that
Oh, yeah.
something
Yeah.
that you can release to the public?
Oh, sure.
Well, we have two right now, two
Yeah.
hospitalizations.
Hospitalizations when they're actually admitted to the hospital.
They're not just sitting in the ER
Yeah.
for 3 hours getting monitored.
Yeah.
They're
Okay.
admitted.
So they're admitted.
And that's a definition at a hospital level,
Okay,
and it depends on how sick they are or not.
okay. And then what is, so hospitalizations is when they're admitted to the hospital?
And of course, they're an active case, because they
Yeah.
have it.
Okay.
They're part of the active count case.
Okay, so if you have 10 active, 3 hospitalized,
Yes.
there's not a total of 13, there's the 10 and 3 over 10. Okay.
Yes.
And then what is considered active when you report the numbers?
So an active case is one we're actively working on, you're still in isolation.
Okay,
So once they go out of isolation, then they're inactive. So then
Okay.
you take them off.
and isolation would be,
Isolation is, it's like quarantine, only isolation is for sick people, quarantine is for people who are watching, for like close contacts, that kind of thing. So we're waiting for their disease, to finish its course, and then they're taken off, and they can go into the community and
okay.
whatever work.
And is there I know there was a 14-day was kind of the, you know, golden rule of that type of thing. Has that changed?
Well, 14 days for a quarantine for a close contact.
Okay,
A 10-day, it's actually 10 days from when they either had a positive test for the first day of their symptoms,
okay,
so it's 10 days from that.
Okay.
Unless they get worse, and if they get really sick, like if they're in hospital, if they're hospitalized, then it's actually a 20-day quarantine, or isolation. So it's kind of confusing.
mm-hmm. Just depends on the case, it kind
It
of
just
sounds like.
depends on, yeah, how sick they are.
Okay, okay. And then my other, I'm trying to only keep what I say in here as questions just to be informed. But one thing that, like I noticed, I've been following the Montana website, I've been following the public health Facebook page, which on there stated that the numbers are going to be different than the website because of the timing of reporting. And so I've been keeping up on that, and what's tough for me to wrap my mind around in the sense of accepting it is the website says one thing, Facebook page says something else, the radio reported something different today. And that's okay because everybody's working as hard as they can to get these numbers right, and I understand that, and I'm not saying, oh, well, just because you said it, it has to be this here. Not at all, because I understand this is new to everybody, we're trying to do our best. But making rules, mandates, forcing people to do things that they feel is unconstitutional based on these numbers that are being said, one thing here, one thing there, one thing here, is a little bit disconcerting as a citizen to this. And I'm only speaking to this county because you can't really speak to what else is going on everywhere else because everything's different. So that was one thing that, and I think a lot of people kind of think like, oh gosh, like, do we believe this? Do we believe that? And people want to do the right thing in the sense that we want our county to be healthy, we want our kids to be healthy, you know, the young kids, the elderly people, like, we just want to be healthy, we want to go on with our lives, let our businesses run, let our economy flourish once again, but it's disconcerting that we're making all these, we're being told what to do and what not to do based on numbers that are not the same in different spots that are reporting them. And also just throwing things out there saying, we have active cases, we have 2 hospitalizations, okay. The hospitalizations, I'm, you know, sending their thoughts because you know at that point when you're admitted, you're more than at home isolating, obviously, you need more treatment. But when you say active, people panic. Are these active people at home with their families, with a cough, with maybe a day of body aches, or these people, I mean, can't get out of bed, can't walk, are on their deathbed? It's a panic just saying there's active cases, and people panic. You get too close to them in public, and they look at you weird, or they balk at you like you know raised your fist at them or something, and it's just creating just not a good thing. And it's also, and I know we're going to be talking about school stuff, so I wanted to kind of keep that separate before we moved on, but that would roll over to schooling to where school can open based on active cases, but active cases are not being reported the same across the board. So again, that would be a conversation once we start talking about the schooling and opening schooling or not opening schooling. So that was just, anyway, just kind of the way things are being reported. And that's fine, they're being reported the way they are, but the fact that we're making mandates and rules based on these reports, they need to be accurate as can be, in my mind, to feel like we can mandate a whole county of people. I don't know if I'm rambling or if I'm making sense, but that's just kind of how I'm seeing, and cases are going up, everybody sees it, testing's increasing, that's why we're seeing more cases. 3 months ago we weren't testing, so we didn't have cases. They're going to keep going up, and I just don't want it to shut our county down, shut our community down, shut our children down, because these cases are rising for, you know, John Doe over here with a cough on his couch. That's going to kick my kid in and out of school because it's going to throw me over the threshold of the 4 or more for the mask, or under for the mask, you know what I'm saying? That one person could do that, and it's panicking people, but it's okay because they got through it. I mean, I've known multiple people that have tested positive, and they're just waiting for their days to be up, and they're fine, they're functioning, they're going, spending time with their family, outdoorsy things, or whatever they're doing, but they're not laying on the couch about to die. And I think that's what a lot of people think, and it scares them, and when people are scared, they don't think rationally. So,
Is that it?
that is it for now, yes. I'll be back with school. I don't know if you guys have anything else to say or you know, reassurance, but about the reporting of the test or the cases and how they're reported and how they're very vague and panicking people. I don't know if you have anything else to add?
I mean, I think what
To
you're
that.
seeing is that you're seeing that the Facebook updates are the most accurate, because that's what Sue's putting out based on the most accurate information. And it
Okay.
does change every single day, and the report to the state is gonna be delayed. So the state numbers are gonna be a little bit behind what our numbers are, so I would focus on the Facebook update.
Okay, that's good to know.
And understand that it's gonna fluctuate, because we're gonna get maybe a case even that, like we had somebody that was hospitalized in a different state recently, and then came back, and we didn't know about it until after they were discharged, so we don't always have all the up-to-date information, so all of a sudden there's an active case, that's, you know,
Mm-hmm.
as to a total hospitalization number. So the numbers are a little bit hard to get a hold of in that way sometimes. And
Okay.
there's people that are gonna be coming out of isolation all the time too.
Right,
So that'll make our total number look different than what our, you know, new case number is.
right, right.
Continually changes.
Right, and that's the thing, is well, and it can change hour to hour.
It does change hour to hour.
And that's kind of where, what I'm kind of getting at is to where we're gonna try to make these rules and tell people what to and what not to do based on these numbers, but the fluctuating, how can you how can you keep track of that, how can you enforce that, and so on and so forth. And again, like I said, it will roll over into the school conversation as well with that, so.
Well, I think you have a good point too, that when you start hearing from people and how they're doing, I mean, that's what we need to know too, as physicians too, we need to see it more. We need to kind of hear the story of the illness, what does it look like for most people? And we're seeing a huge variety, we're seeing people who are fine, and they are just waiting their days out, and we've seen some people who are hospitalized. So it's
Right.
really strange, because it can make some people so sick and some people not sick. So it's a strange illness, because you think a virus that can kill some of us should make all of us sick, but it doesn't.
Right.
So it's a little unique as far as viruses go.
Mhm.
But I think we'll know more, and as we talk to each other and hear about how was your experience with it? How did you feel?
Yeah.
We're gonna learn a lot more too.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Okay, next, our Linda Marsh, Superintendent of Schools, will be here. She's present today, and I asked her to come up and go over the school plans, if you would, get the mic. I got, and then there's some 1, 2, 3 people from the schools that I see. Am I missing one? Okay. You need it.
Take this off so you can hear me. So the rural schools are planning at this point to reopen face-to-face when school starts. Again, everything is dependent on what happens between then and now. Our start dates for 5 of the schools is September 8th, and one school will be starting on September 2nd. But right now, that's what our plan is, that we would open face-to-face. And we have been planning, looking at other plans around the state and seeing what others are doing. We had a meeting by Zoom yesterday morning with middle school trustees, clerks, and supervising teachers, and just discussed a lot of the situations and things that, protocols and things that we are going to be putting into place. And they look somewhat different going from school to school, because each school is unique. We have three of our schools have current enrollments projected for fall of 10 or under, and then the other 3 are below 20. And that's what we're projecting at this time, but we could get new students. Generally, a school or 2 does get a few new students between as school starts. So with those numbers, we're feeling like that we're pretty, if we follow, the social distancing, all of the things that are being, the guidelines from the CDC and the governor and OPI, that we can be, say, have the risk as low as possible, but there always is a risk, that's just it. But, so we have, none of the school boards have actually adopted a plan yet. So, like I say, we are working on it. They are hoping to adopt something during their August meetings. And, following that, there will be, a lot of communication with the communities and the families, so that everyone understands how things will look. We feel that it is important to be ready and prepared to go into remote learning. If possible, if it happens that things change, we need to do that. We talked a lot about trying to be as consistent as possible. We can't be completely consistent, but try to have similar platforms of learning if we do remote learning. We have done, a lot of work toward teacher training and things like that, so that they're ready for that. We only have one school that has a bus, so we're looking to see if they need to do like social distancing, what their numbers will be riding the bus, and how things might have to do reduced capacity. That school's bus routes have not been completely approved by the transportation committee because they're still working on it, and they did not have a July board meeting. So again, it just kind of depends on the number of seats on their bus and the number of students that need to ride the bus, on whether or not they'll need to do like a loop back to get closer students or something like that to include everyone. We have 3 of the rural schools that have only one teacher, and each of those schools has an aide. One of those has just a part-time aide. The other schools have 2 classrooms, and they do not have aides. So we're hoping that with that limited personnel that we'll be able to keep the students in small groups and really smaller than what's required at this point.
If you're on the conference call, please mute your phone. We can hear background noise. Thank you.
And then as far as our facilities, they've been working on plans for sanitation. Some of the schools have purchased misters that they can turn on and have everything in the room misted and sanitized at night. Just the various, everyone's different in that regard, but they're all working on what fits their need. I have, what I created is just it's in draft form, so I don't really want to give it out. And like I say, the boards haven't approved it or anything. I just created a 1-pager, so it's easy for the parents to look at it. The first column just gives the phases according to what the governor's phase is at the current time. So we all know we're in phase 2 right now, so then they can look and see what health and safety measures are going to be in place, and then what style of learning will be in place at the time. And then if we move, to phase 3, that will change. If we tighten it down and we move to phase 1 or whatever. So we're going to be, of course, complying with governor directives and Board of Health and CDC as we go through this. So things can change. It's going to have to adapt to whatever our current situation is. So, And then to go along with that, I'm also creating just a small booklet, which the boards will have independent right to either create their own or take mine or change mine a little bit. But it's just goes into like some of the meat of it, like what are the, if we do, if there is a closure and we can't have school, then what are going to be the learning platforms? What are going to be the expectations of the students, the parents, the teachers, those kinds of things. And then also just, again, hitting on things that could be affected, like attendance and grades and visitors and events and those kinds of things. So I feel like, we're pretty ready, and but that could change. We're ready today, we don't know in a month from now. So did you have any questions for me? Yes.
What's the criteria for you to make a decision to go to remote learning? And what scientific data do you have that shows remote learning is okay for kids?
Our criteria will be if we get a directive. I mean, we don't want to be in the place of really deciding on our own. So if the governor says we need to close the schools or our local health department, then we will comply. But most of the boards feel that they want to wait for that. They don't really want to close school unless they have to.
And what data do you have that backs up that remote learning is okay for, not talking high school, but for kids, younger kids? What data do you have that remote learning does not harm them more than help them?
I don't have any data that says that it will either hurt or harm them. I think it depends on the student. But I guess I feel like we're obligated to provide something. If the school is closed and our students cannot come to school, we are obligated to provide them education the best way we can. And in this case, remotely is what we have taught.
Okay, even though there is data out there that shows.
Well, I personally feel that, that a lot of students can do well, even if they're in elementary, with remote learning. It's not as good as face-to-face learning with their teacher, but I think it's better than just letting them sit in front of the TV all day or something and not giving them education at all.
I think some of the science shows that kids need to interact. That's so important for humans.
Well, the teachers really try to do things that they can interact. When they do Zoom lessons, so when the kids are on, like I watched one last spring, it was really cute. It was with kindergartners, and there were, I don't know how many, 3 or 4 little kindergartners, and they were all at their kitchen tables, and the teacher was going to do a lesson, and one of the little boys said, "Teacher, before we start, can we show each other our houses? Because you said that we could maybe show things today." And she said, "Well, let's do our lesson first, and then if we have time, and if you get permission from your mom to show your house, then we'll let you do that." And so it was really cute, because when they got finished with their reading lesson, the kids were walking around and, "Oh, this is my room, and this is this," and it was really cute, and it was very social, and kids were asking, "Oh, what's that?" And so you can, if the teachers look at it, there are ways that you can have social interaction, even if you're on Zoom or some kind of other remote learning, they can interact. Sometimes it isn't in that way, it might be group chats or whatever, but I don't, it's not the same, but they try really hard to make sure that it's fun and interactive as well.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Any comments from the conference call? People? Hearing none, comments in the room? Questions?
Well, I have a lot of
Go
comments,
ahead.
but I'm in support of Linda 100%. We've worked closely together on a lot of this, but I'm assuming I'll get a chance to have my comments on that, so.
Yeah, here. And
But I want to say, I agree with Mayor 100%, kids should be in school. But I think what Linda was saying, and I support her 100%, if the county health or the governor says we can't be in school, then the next best option is the remote learning. And we learned a lot last spring, and we're going to hopefully be a lot better. But yeah, it's not the best. But if that's the hand we're dealt, then that's what we have to do. But I'm assuming I'll get a chance to say that.
anything else for Linda?
Thank you. Thanks, Tony.
Good. Next, I guess you spoke first, so I'd offer you the first chance to speak. How's that?
Gary's welcome to come up with me because we have worked very closely.
You can come together.
Yeah, but I'm also happy that it's a little different, so. My name is Randy Shipman, I'm the superintendent of the K-8 district, and I appreciate the opportunity to be here today, although I didn't ask for it. I've worked very closely with Dr. Evans and Sue, and I want to thank them for their time and expertise and efforts through this whole crisis. I've also worked very closely with Gary Haverfield, superintendent at the high school, as well as Tracy and Linda from Lyman County Schools, and OPI, and the CDC, and the Department of Public Health and Human Services, and all these different entities that have been part of this. MTSBA, which is the Montana School Board Association, our legal counsel, the folks that we go to, have been a huge supporter and driver and support in the decisions that we've made. I have a plan. Sue and Megan have seen the plan. I'm assuming it's already been approved. I mean, that's why it was kind of weird coming to this meeting. Our board has already approved our plan. There are 4 levels in our plan. We changed them to levels because there were too many talks of phases. The state sent out a plan, the OPI sent out a plan, some other reopening schools plans.
Hello, if you're on the conference call, please mute your phone. Thank you.
So we changed ours to levels right away. We have level 1, which is essentially there's no issues. It's like we've always conducted school. We have level 2, which is what we plan on starting, which is in person with some heightened social distancing and some other things that we can talk nitty-gritty if you want in a minute. But some protocols will be in place to hopefully help our kids and our staff and community at large stay safe. And I do want to say at some point, so now's a good time, we're not going to eliminate the disease. We're not trying to eliminate it. We're trying to mitigate it to the best of our ability. I agree with the mayor. I've read lots of statistics on kids in the state of California. We just haven't, and I can show that if you'd like. Not a single kid under the age of 17 has died, and I think only one has been hospitalized from COVID. Obviously, we have our staff and we have our parents and grandparents and things like that to be concerned about as well. But I, like the mayor, would like the kids in school, in person, and we have, in our level 2, we have lots of things in place to help hopefully make sure that people are safe. In our level 3, it's a AB type schedule. It's 50% of our kids are on campus and 50% are remote learning, hopefully simultaneously. We found some problems with that last year where we think that'll be a lot better if they're actually in class even when they're at home. Which is gonna, for some parents that's gonna be an issue because they love having them working on the ranch and doing different things, but if they're in school, they're in school. And then our level 4 is where we ended last year, so that's complete remote learning. To answer the mayor's question quickly, what puts us in a level is basically for me is Sue and Dr. Evans. They tell us where we can be based upon the transmission in the community. We don't feel, and in talking to Sue, and I don't want to speak for her, but I don't feel that 1 or 2 cases in the county necessarily puts us in a level 4. We have, and I don't know what the threshold is. That goes down to these gals and their expertise and their professionalism. telling us what those numbers are. But our level 1 is kind of a minimal or no transmission. Our level 2 is a minimal transmission. Our level 3 in the community. Our level 3 is a greater transmission, whatever that means. And then level 4 is, you know, we're a hot spot, or we have great transmission in the community. We have lots of things in place. I'm happy to talk about all those things. We have had a problem like everybody else getting PPE, but we've done pretty well. I got on it real early, from hand sanitizer stations to wipes to masks to shields to all those types of things. I know masks is a big deal. I want to talk about that if we have a minute, if we have a chance in a minute. We have done the best we can to secure a lot of those products, but as all these folks will tell you, they're very difficult to get right now. So we're doing the best we can to have all those things in place, and I think we have a lot of them in place. We have a lot of different things in place. For example, temperature check. But that's something that I want to talk to these two gals more about. We're not sure that that is actually, you know, at first that was the big deal. Temperature check, temperature check, temperature check. We heard a lot about that. The further I get into this, it sounds like that's only 30% effective. And in the middle school, girls in particular have lots of reasons that they have temperatures in the middle school. And kindergartners have lots of reasons because they're teething and things like that. We also feel like that's a bottleneck of checking people coming in and stuff like that. So you'll notice in my plan there's a lot of considerations, and a lot of those considerations have been discussed with a lot of other people. And we're going to do the best we can to keep our kids safe, to keep our staff safe, and to keep the greater community safe. But some of that is fluid, and it's moving, and it's what is best. And so we purchased 80 thermometers at a pretty high price to make sure that every single one of our classrooms have thermometers. We're thinking that maybe that's a better place to do that. We have cohort groups. When we get into level 2 and level 3, we try to, instead of kids rotating, sometimes we have the teachers rotating, so the kids aren't passing and things like that. So I don't know how nitty-gritty you want to talk. I'm willing to say any of that. But we have taken all those things into account. I do have really 2 big things I want to ask about. One, of course, is masks. Imagine that. There's just a lot of issues with having masks, especially the younger the kids are. I've explored face shields, and I think, Dr. Evans, and you correct me if I'm wrong, I didn't hear you say this, I heard you say this, that the face masks are not the same as, the face shield is not the same as a face mask. We have, I have a definition from our legal counsel that says that a face shield does qualify as that. I guess I have a question about that just because that is going to probably be one of the biggest things. We're going to lose a lot of families if we require masks in school. I'm very concerned about that for some of the reasons I've heard others talk about, from suicide to the whole mental health. Actually heard about suicide today. I'm very, very concerned about the mental health status of our students, from sexual abuse to all kinds of things that are happening with our kids because they're not in school. I'm very concerned about that, and I'm concerned about losing some of our folks, but I just need to know what the recommendation is going to be from County Health. I support Sue 100%. I've told her that many times, and although I don't always agree with her, I do support her, and we'll do what we have to do to keep our kids in school. Sorry, I'm trying to, here it is. Face covering means a fabric, paper, or disposable face covering that covers the nose and mouth and which does not have an exhalation valve. The term face covering includes face shields. So that's from our MTSBA council. My question is, if face masks are going to be required in school, there's a lot of language acquisition and verbal cues and all those types of things, especially K through second grade kids. My question is, if masks are going to be required, can face shields take place of masks? And I don't know what your legal definition and all that stuff is. But I know that that's going to be a very big question for our staff and for our students and for our parents. Gary's gonna talk a lot about transportation, so I'm not gonna say much about that. That's a big deal in and of itself, how we're gonna get our kids to school and things like that. But I think now, Tom, I'll just see if anybody has any questions or comments.
Okay. I'll start on the conference call. Does anybody have any questions for Randy? Hearing none. In the room. Sue.
So, Randy, Megan and I have had lots of conversations regarding face coverings versus a face shield. And they aren't the same thing. And I'll let you, if you dove into the research on that, so I'll let her talk about that.
I mean, there's not, face shields, of course, there's not great data, because they're fairly new, except for in some medical circumstances when we use them already anyways. I suspect that the data's gonna come out that they're pretty darn good, actually. And there is some that show they're protective, but not by themselves. So they're great for the droplet stuff, which is the main mode of transmission, but you're still gonna get some aerosol. So I think it'd be great if someone can't wear a mask, like they're working with a student that cannot hear them or something, and they need to do that enunciation, they should wear a face shield. In the medical field right now, we're all wearing masks and face shields for extra protection for our eyes. So I think that might be reasonable to consider too. Hearing gets to be more of a problem with the face shield on than even a mask, actually. I've been surprised at that. It's much harder to hear, and when you combine them, it's even harder. But it is more protective. So I think that it doesn't, I don't know about the legal definition, that's different than like medical definition, but
Right.
it can't protect against aerosols as well. But I think it's going to end up being pretty good. So if somebody can't wear a mask or something, I think it's a good option. And they're much more comfortable. As far as the masking, it's hard to say because different countries have done different things. Some countries that have done really well haven't masked. Some countries have masks, and I totally understand kids. Not every kid can wear one. Not for forever, for sure. It's not fun to wear one all day. But I wonder if we shouldn't just try and maybe follow the governor's mask mandate based on how we're doing in the county.
Well, and can I say this first? And I should have said this first, sorry, Dr. As you probably all know, the governor has not mandated masks in schools to this point. And I think that's very telling. I also think it's because we're not in school right now. And when he first had the mandate here, what was a week or 10 days ago about masks in public buildings, it was that he knew that local, boards were working on that and local health departments and stuff like that. In his press conference 2 days ago, or whatever it was now, he alluded to that being the possibility. But I do want everybody to know that it is not a requirement right now that masks are in school. So I maybe should have started with that. And I guess my question would be, given that they're not a requirement right now, given that they are a requirement in our community based on the governor's mandate of 4+ cases, maybe that's what I should have asked is what are we going to be mandated to do from a local standpoint? Not counting my local board and not counting and taking the governor out of it, what would the health department?
Right. Well, and I guess I was looking at the governor's mandate again yesterday, and he doesn't exempt schools either.
He said what, maybe?
He doesn't exempt schools either.
Right.
So I think he probably will come out with more language, is my guess.
I'm sure.
And I would hope we could follow that, but I would encourage them whenever we can because the data's so good. So.
Sue?
The other thing I want to say too, for the teachers, you can take your mask off when you're talking and presenting, so that's, you don't have to have a mask on, you don't have to have a face shield on. That's encumbering their presentations and stuff too, so that is.
Where you're not.
Yeah.
May I, Chairman?
Question for Randy?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Kind of also extend your question I've been talking once on. First off, on the mask issue for the kids, I think you ought to just put up, they're not going to wear it. They'll be taken off in the playgrounds and doing all that.
Well, they would.
Plus, I don't really see a benefit to the kids. Really, we're talking, throughout this whole thing, we've been talking, and everybody's been getting so scared about how many cases we get. Cases mean nothing. even hospitalization, that means something to the hospitals if we get overloaded, but it still don't mean anything. How many people die? And kids, you only had, since this whole COVID came in, you've only had about 20 die in your school area. Most of them are in the higher grades. The high school is higher. Of those even, it's up in like 40 that have died. Most of the deaths for COVID is way old people. And that might be the teachers you gotta more worry about. And I understand that teachers you might have to treat some things different there. But to me, I mean, the rate of death in children, at least in your grades, are so low. There are so many things else. If that's what we're worrying about, you better not let them go out and play in any sports. You better not let them do anything, because that's where they're more likely to die. Looking at the numbers in the CDC. Okay. For children, to me, we're getting too carried away. Not the teachers, not the more, I'm assuming it sounds like you've covered that pretty well on how to handle for the teachers. But right now, I'm talking just the kids. My personal belief, I want to see why you need them, the mask for them.
So I think mostly what we're doing now is trying to prevent them from getting the disease so they spread it out to the community, to older people. That's the concern.
Can I make a comment?
Pardon?
May I make a comment?
Question for Randy. Direct your question to Randy.
Yeah, so Randy, my understanding of this plan is that regardless of what level we're in, we have the option as a parent to fully utilize distance learning. So we do not, as parents, at any level, have to put our child physically in school to be able to have them be taught through the Dillon Public School.
That is correct, and I probably should have made that clear sooner. In all of our levels, we have an opt-out. We don't want to lose kids. We don't want to lose kids to homeschooling. We don't want to lose them because we feel we do a great job. Nothing against some homeschool parents who do a phenomenal job. We also, there's a funding mechanism. There's all kinds of reasons. We're going to get these kids back in our school, hopefully at some point. There is an opt-out for parents who are either fearful of their child homeschool or have legitimate, compromised immune systems of going to school. 93-year-old grandma lives in the home, whatever the case is. We have that option for our families, and we also have that option for our staff if they fit with the CDC guidelines of the underlying health conditions or they're over the age of 65. So yes, that is true. We want kids in school, however, with that said, but we will have a lot of folks take advantage of that, I'm confident.
So I guess what I'm getting at is that you're going to have, I know half a dozen families who have already decided to homeschool because they don't want to have to follow additional guidelines for school. You have the other end of the spectrum of people that are panicked about getting sick or their child getting sick.
Go ahead.
So they're not going to send them to school.
Hang on a second. One more reminder, if you're on the conference call, mute your phone. Mute your phone. Thank you.
I guess I would just ask for a common sense approach to those of us that are kind of in that middle where we want to send our kids to school, but we want them to feel a little bit more like it's not quite as institutionalized as maybe, to be in a mask constantly. I definitely think masks should be something that's encouraged, and I think if you mandate it, you're going to really, really hurt a lot of kids and a lot of families.
I would agree with what Sarah said. I think we are. Another question, well, I guess I'll wait, and I have one more.
Is there a question on the conference call?
Does someone on the conference call have a question?
We keep getting feedback. Somebody doesn't have their phone muted.
Check and see if the little mute button is pressed. Please. Thank you.
I conducted a survey. You can go online right now and do that. There's 495 responses I've received up to this point. and not everybody on there mentioned masks, not everybody on there mentioned coming back to school, and there's a variety of things mentioned. Some of them not very nice. Of the 495 responses, I only got 12 thank yous. That kind of hurt my feelings. But it was 2 to 1. We're going to look, if we say we're having masks, we're going to lose families. If we say we're not having masks, we're going to lose families. Either way, we're going to lose families. But it is 2 to 1, more than 2 to 1, that people do not want masks mandated. The other thing I want to point out is it's about 3 to 1 people want to be in school versus afraid. So the questions were, do you want to come back to face-to-face learning? That was 70%. And the next one was a blended model. That was 14%. Distance learning, about 15%, and unsure was about 6%. So overwhelmingly, our families want to come back to school, and I don't want to say real overwhelmingly because they didn't all talk about masks, but pretty overwhelmingly they were concerned about the mask deal. The other question I have for Sue and Megan real quick is you read a lot about the 6-foot distance, but you also hear a lot about 3-foot in schools. I know that's going to come up with my teachers. It makes it fairly difficult to have the 6-foot distance. We have some we have some protocols put in place. Is 3 feet enough, or does it have to be 6 feet? They talk a lot about adults being the 6 foot, but the kids can be 3 feet, and I just kind of want a professional opinion on that.
That's what I've seen too. I just looked at the Beaverhead County Pediatrics. I think they still say 6 feet in that one, if I remember correctly. 3 feet is good. There's good data for that. 6 feet's twice as good. So I think if we can do 3 feet, that's probably better for our school, and it's at least doable, and we know it has some safety data too. So if we can do 6 feet at times, that'd be even better.
Yeah, and I think our goal is to do 6 feet, but I know teachers are going to ask, and our policies state that we'll follow CDC guidelines and things like that, and so I want to make sure I say to my teacher, yeah, 3 feet's enough. If you can't get to the 6 feet, 6 feet is obviously better. For you as the adult, you should probably be the 6 feet at all times, unless you can. Yeah. Cool.
Superintendent Shipman, I have one question for you. Will you be offering, should masks be required, will you offer accommodations for exemption?
We have to offer so in other words, could somebody opt out of the mask? Yes, we have to offer that as part of the accommodations for asthma and things like that. But, and that's a great question, Dean of Students, Angel Baker. That's a great question because
Something just blew up.
Somebody doesn't have their phone, they just had a cat fight on it.
So that's a great question why Sue and Megan are sitting here is, so if a student wants to opt out for a variety, for health reasons, I'm not, Gary might be doing this all the time, I'm not requiring documentation from that, I'm taking their word for it. If a staff member wants to opt out, we can and will be asking for documentation for that. With a student in a mask situation, I actually have staff members who are the same. I know one for sure who's asthmatic who cannot put a mask on. And I would hope and assume that they would have the same, I know we do in our regular lives, so to speak, so I would assume that they would have the same opportunity with appropriate documentation opt out. Now, with that said, and another issue I have with masks, you can look around this room and see a lot of different types of masks. I don't know how many of you have been in K-8 schools or in the high schools, but I'm a little concerned about now we're going to become the mask police, both in terms of what's appropriate, and I've seen a lot of inappropriate ones online, but also in terms of the whole monitoring mask use. My understanding is when we take them on and take them off and take them on and take them off, that's not good. But with all that said, I don't know how to answer that question. It's a really good one. And we will have accommodations, but I think it's figuring out You know, I can't have 300 kids show up and say, my mom and dad said I don't have to wear a mask, if the mandate is a mask, and take their word for it, so to speak. So I'm not sure how we're gonna address that, because I promise you, just about everyone will do it. It is almost impossible to wear a mask 8 hours a day.
Over here,
Lori.
Yeah. Okay, so if you think about this in a common sense perspective, they can't wear masks while they're eating, so they won't have masks in the cafeteria, because if they do set their masks down, where is it gonna end up, really, if they're eating? Masks in the gym, if they're running, it's really hard to breathe, not a good flow of oxygen, would not recommend it, but they are gains that they can stay 6 feet apart. In the library and in the classroom, you know, I would say we strongly recommend in the classroom that these kids have masks, because they're sitting so close to each other, and they're working one-on-one or with the teacher or in groups or things like that. But then you have outside where they're not required to have them, and again, where are they gonna end up? In a snowbank, in a mud puddle, like, so you can't, in a school, have masks on all the time, but if you're working in a closed setting, the library, classroom, things like that, yeah, ask them to wear a mask, have the kids put them on, make it fun, have them make their own mask. We're doing a mask making at the library and doing eyeglass clips, like we're making lanyards with their names on them, so they have them on and they just hook, and they don't come off and they don't get set down and they don't get lost. We're hoping to do that for a lot of the kids in the school, so that when they go back to school, they're prepared if they have to have the mask on in the classroom. Take it off when they go to lunch, whatever, so it doesn't get gross, but you just can't require it all the time.
So you're directing that question to me, and
Yeah.
I appreciate that, but really that's the question I think needs to be directed to this board, and that is exactly the issues and problems that I'm gonna have to deal with. Now, I'm going to do what I'm directed to do and mandated to do. I'm gonna do it to the best of my ability. I'm afraid I'm gonna lose families, and I'm afraid a lot of the problems Lori brought up, or other people brought up, are gonna be there. I'll do whatever I have to do. And for sake of time, if I need to, you know, if Megan and Sue and I and Gary and Tracy and Linda need to sit down and talk about it more, maybe we can do that. But I agree wholeheartedly that there are going to be lots and lots of issues. I also want to say though, depending on what level we're in, they may not be in the cafeteria eating all together, depending on kind of what our level is. And with PE, you know, yeah, we're not going to be able to, if we have to wear masks, we're not having PE. We can't do strenuous activity with masks on. So yeah, I just think we really need to really think about schools, and I would invite all of you to come down to school and watch school take place if you've forgotten about it, and see how it actually works in school, to see if we're going to be able to all wear masks the whole time. Again, I'm not trying to be obstinate. I'm going to do what is best for our kids, foremost, what is best for our staff secondly, and I want to do what's best for our community. But I think we have to be realistic with what can work in schools. And yeah, if I can work with Sue and Megan on, these are the appropriate times to wear them. You hear a lot of plans talk about wearing them during passing time, but they're not wearing them in the classroom, or they're wearing them during, certain times. But there's so many times in school, and we're going to do everything we can to mitigate the times they pass, and the congregation. We have a lot of cohorts. Mr. Zier and Mr. Rogers are down in school right now working on some of the middle school plans as far as trying to isolate, and please don't take this wrong, not isolate our kids like they're by themselves in a room, but in other words, put them in cohorts where they're not necessarily moving around, so we can contact trace better if there is an issue. They're working on those types of things where they're not moving as much as they have been, but masks in school are going to be unbelievably difficult to monitor and to have them do. And then to have them learn with those masks. Sorry, Tom.
Kathy in the background.
Uh-oh, trustee.
Is there a particular reason we're totally avoiding
Come on, why don't you come up? I can't hear you. But that's probably me.
Is there a particular reason that we're not addressing face shields, like the teachers that have asthma or some of that kind of stuff?
We did earlier before you came in.
Well, I think that may be a solution to a lot of the issues. I totally agree with Lori. It'd be fun to have kindergartners, first graders, whatever,
make things to hold on to their masks. I think that's cool. I kiss mine around my wrist like it's a bracelet when I don't need it on. But face shields are something that we can use, so don't get too hung up personally on only masks, especially with staff.
Well, I did bring that up earlier, Kathy, and we did address that, and Megan she had good responses to that, and that is a possibility, but right now, the mandate is mask, and so that's why I was asking where we're at with that.
Is it masks strictly, or is it face shields of some sort?
So that's what I asked directly was, is there a difference between mask and face shield? Because you probably saw Lance's definition of a face cover, and he included face shield, but the medical definition does not, so that's why I brought that up.
But I think that's a good point, though, if masks aren't worn, if face shield, if people do it, that is wonderful. Yeah, that's better than nothing.
Well, it allows you to see facial expressions, which is a huge deal for little kids. It's huge for language acquisition. It's huge for not suffocating. I agree with you, Dr. Evans. It definitely, you don't hear as well. But it's not quite as, I think for a kid and for adults, it's not quite as suffocating. And I think in a school, it's going to be more, we're still going to have problems with those, but it's going to be, I think we're going to have less problems with a shield than we are with a mask. And people still have the option to wear a mask if they want to wear a mask. I mean, that's still there. Just like if you say we have to wear a mask, they still have an option to wear a shield with the mask. And I have a couple teachers I already know will do that. But I would highly encourage us to consider face shields in place of the mask in school. And maybe not all the time, but at certain times, and again, maybe we could figure that out,
Yeah.
close.
I kind of think that the common sense approach is what works. I first don't see kids wearing masks at recess or while they're eating lunch. There's not going to be all the time, but it's all about mitigating risk. So the less viral load you get, even if it's a little less, you probably have a better chance. So.
And with that said, as you well know, the more structured we are with where that's another, we have to be very specific to our staff and to our students, and quite frankly to parents, as to when they would have to wear those masks. I mean, it sounds simple, like, well, you just wear it when you think it's appropriate and convenient, but I will have to be very specific on where they're required to wear them and where they don't have to, whether it's a mask or a shield or whatever.
I would encourage having the face shields available for those who choose to wear those, just because for ADA purposes, students need to be able to see their mouth, to be able to read lips.
Speech therapy.
That's right.
Yeah.
And for facial expressions, young children are still figuring out those facial expressions. And
Absolutely.
so the face shield will take care of it. The best is a face mask for COVID prevention, but a face shield is the next best, alone, so that they can see that. And children, sometimes these face masks are kind of scary. So.
Okay. Randy? Randy, Gary, you have some transportation issues?
Well, I got a lot to talk about too, but.
Go ahead. It's all the same issues.
Not all of it.
Yeah, it's very, very similar though.
Do you want to ask a question?
I was still on the mask thing, but I can wait.
Okay, yeah, it'll come up again, I'm sure. Like Randy said, we've worked very, very closely with Dr. Evans and Sue and myself and Randy, and so our plan is very, very similar, although it's different because my clientele is a lot different than his. And so just a couple things about how we kind of gotten to the point we're at. Sue reviewed Randy's plan, which was at one point very similar to ours. And since then, what we chose to do with our board is we chose to adopt the first reading of our plan, which was done at our last board meeting. And so we're waiting for the final to come August 10th. And so I was hoping to have a little bit different plan in place, but Sue hadn't had a chance to look at the revised plan. Sue did meet with myself. She came to our school. We walked through the entire facility. We talked about everything from commons areas to the gyms, to the science classrooms, to every other thing that we have in our school, which is a lot of things. And then I revised numerous things in our plan to address the things we discussed and put lots and lots of things in there. And since then, I've put things in there such as we have a daily sanitizing plan. And it's very, like Grant said, very specific about what we do before school, after school, between classes, all those types of things. Our goal is to then wait to get more comment from you guys about finalizing the plan, and Sue has a revised addition to that. Our plan also does have 4 levels, as does Randy's, very, very similar, actually the same. Our goal is to start in level 2 with all kids coming face to face with a multiplicity of things outlined in our plan in level 2, and I could go through those if you wanted me to. The plan itself is 23 pages long, and if you add all the COVID-19 policies, which is another 15 pages, I mean, it's a big document. But there's lots and lots of stuff in there that pertains to that. Part of our plan starting level 2 is also to have professional development for staff and students regarding what do we do if we do the level 3, which is 50-50. So we've got to train our kids what that means. We've got to train our parents what that means. The other part of our professional development in level 2 will be to train our kids on what level 4 is. Level 4 is what we ended with last year, which was, yeah, I don't even know how to explain it. It wasn't school, I'll tell you that. I told our staff it was crisis schooling, and that's exactly what it was. But we have to do a better job of, if we get to that point again, which I hope we don't, of how we do it and how we train our kids to be better online and how we train our staff to be better online. And so that'll be part of our professional development as well, in case we change from a level, you know, in case something happens and we have to change our level. And so that's all part of what level 2 is all about. And so level 2 is pretty complex in our area in what we do, and there's lots and lots of things to it. Again, our goal will be to revise it based on any input we have from you guys and have a final adoption on August 10th at our board meeting. Next week, our leadership team, who's already seen it once, and we'll meet with our welfare committee to talk about any revisions to it as we finalize it and get it ready for our final reading for August 10th. And then obviously, we want to make a decision by August 10th because we got to let parents know where we're at and what we're going to do. And so that's that part. So I have a couple of big questions. One of them is the mask. You talked about that. We'll talk about that one more time. The last part of our plan is our transportation plan, which is a big deal for us. And so we met with Sue about our transportation plan. And so our levels of transportation are the same as our levels of reopening, level 1, 2, 3, and 4. We feel like we have to start at level 2 transportation-wise, which means we will only pick up kids outside the 3-mile radius. So any in-town kids will not be picked up at this point. Biggest reason is social distancing, how we have to social distance those kids on the bus. And when you have to go one to a seat and every other seat, that's difficult. We have a 2-page plan just for how do we get on and off the bus and how we sanitize the bus and all those types of things. And so, but that's going to be our recommendation, is to start at level 2 with kids, with face-to-face, and level 2 with transportation, which means in-town kids won't be picked up at this point, only out-of-town kids outside the 3-mile radius. We also have a number of, we have 3 other levels of our transportation plan. If things change along the way, we do have a plan in place to pick up in-town kids. It's a little bit unique and different, but there is that available if we're able to do that at some point in time. And obviously, the time of the year and what's going on will dictate whether or not we're able to do that. But we do have plans for that as well.
Okay.
I have a question real quick.
Sure.
Will you do the walking school bus then, or no?
They sure could. We don't have that in our plan.
But Gary's not really in charge. I mean, that's
something totally different?
That's not.
Yeah,
okay.
it's a parent community group that does that.
Okay.
And they can certainly still do that, you bet.
Okay.
Okay. The board, do you have any questions for Gary? Anybody on that? Go ahead, Sue.
I was gonna say, I did send your plan to the Board of Health.
Oh, okay.
It wasn't, I haven't had time, because it was quite long, but they do, so they do have an
Okay,
option
good.
to.
Yeah, we had, I don't know if you send the sanitation plan, we just finalize that. If you want that, I can send it to you, and we've got, our goal is, just so you know, and we'll talk to you, we're gonna temperature check our kids first week when they walk in the door. Every first grade teacher has it throughout, we're checking them. We have hand sanitizing stations at all the main doors, so they sanitize their hands. We have sneeze guards up at all the main areas where they need to be up. We're gonna clean desks at the end of every period. We've got a lot of things in place. We've got a lot of protocols in place. We talk about shields and masks. One of the big things that Randy will deal with, I'll deal with, if a kid comes to the office sick. Now, if they come to the office sick, we're gonna mask up, we're gonna shield up, and we're gonna glove up, and we're gonna do a few other things before we assess that person. And so all that stuff is in place for the safety of the staff and the students and all those types of things. And so all that is in our plan. I think it's pretty thorough. I think it's pretty, I hope it's thorough. You've seen the flow chart, all those types of things, how we're gonna handle those situations. And again, it's different for myself and Randy, because I've got 14 to 19-year-olds. And so.
Lucky you.
Well, sometimes that's a benefit, sometimes I'm not sure. But anyway, so there are lots of stuff, and so we want you guys to look at it so you guys can give us feedback before we finalize it and then go from there. But we feel like social distancing, Randy's talked about it. That's this document right here. This is our social distancing document. Just so you know, I told Sue all these numbers. I looked at every class. We have 135 sections of classes per semester. 135 sections. We started off with 35 of those sections have 20 or more kids in them. So 35 out of the 135 have 20 or more kids in them. Okay, and so we felt when we went to the classrooms, some classrooms, the example, our science classrooms are huge. They're almost as big as the schoolroom. We can handle 28, 30 kids in there easy. Our shops, no problem. The gym, we can spread out. But in other classrooms, we feel like 20 is about, if you're gonna 6 feet them apart in social distance, 20 is about the number. So just so you know, because of all those other areas, we're down to about 20 out of 135 classes, sections that are over 20. So what I'm gonna do, as long as the government keep sending us money, we're hoping to hire an extra English and math person, and there's 12 math and English classes that have 20 or more, and we're gonna split them. And we'll have, an example is if Rick Nordall has one of those classes, he's gonna be the primary teacher. He'll set the lesson plans because it's his class, and then he'll work with the teacher that we hire for 4 periods a day to work with first, third, fifth, sixth period classes, and that teacher, and then they teach the same plan, the same lessons. So we're gonna split those classes. So then we get it down to about eight sections out of 135 that have 20 or more in it. So that's kind of the things we're working on. So anyway, there's obviously, it's 23 pages, so there's way more to it than that, but questions?
Can I mention one more thing on behalf of Gary and myself? One of the things that came up in the survey was 13 times a nurse came up. I want you all to know, Gary and I have, we would consider a nurse. He talked about some of that funding. We have some fears about, we have never had a nurse. We have never had a nurse. And now Karen Gibbons and Dina Smith are going to be upset I said that. Karen and Dina are nurses, and Trudy, and I'm sure Audra. But we have some money now where we could get a nurse. The problem is, I talked to Tom Schumacher at the hospital. We were going to contract out with them like we do OT, PT, and things like that. We're more than happy to get a nurse. I'm a bit concerned about a full-time nurse. If I was having a heart attack in the hallway, I would want a nurse there. But to be honest, I want all the parents out there to know that we've done quite well. We can triage, we can do a lot of things. Mr. and Mrs. Williams are phenomenal. So I want people to know, because I know this is being recorded, we are looking for a nurse. If you guys have any ideas, that would be great. The hospital has been short 2 nurses for over a year and a half or 2 years now. If there is somebody out there that's interested, apparently somebody said something on Facebook, if somebody's out there and interested, have them contact myself or Gary. We're happy to kind of share a nurse a little bit between us. I'm very leery about a full-time nurse. I don't think we need it. I don't think it's proper use of funds. And I think that we do a pretty adequate job. But in the interim, while this pandemic's here, we're more than happy to consider a nurse. So just keep that in mind, Sue.
Are you talking just for this year, or are you talking for?
That's the problem, you know? This money is for this year. And by the way, a lot of people don't, you know, I want to make this.
This year.
I want to get this out here too. That money goes to December. So a lot of people, I got a lot of staff, a lot of parents ask me, oh, why don't you do this? Why don't you get a Cadillac? Why don't you do, you know, that money is very specific and it runs out in December. So how do I pay a salary through December, and what do I do from December on? So it's not as easy said as done. And there is no money in next year's budget. There's never been money in our budget for a nurse. Is there in yours?
We hope to survive the year.
Yeah. So I just want to get that out there because I know that was a big overriding concern of a lot of our parents. 13 in that survey mentioned a nurse. Some of them said every school in the town should have a nurse. Don't share. And actually one said we should have 2 nurses. Now, I'm all for nurses, and I would love that. It would take a lot of pressure off a lot of my people. I'm just not sure that we can do it. But, Dr. Evans, if you have some extra time, we'd take a doctor.
No, I think Randy's point is well taken, is we would consider that, and we are considering that, and so we have talked to the hospital about the possibility, and they just don't feel like they can find anybody.
I agree.
Has OPI become less strict about absenteeism during this? Like, can kids miss more days if they do have to?
Well, their attendance rate is ours, not theirs. They don't tell us what to do with attendance.
Okay.
It's our attendance policy that they have to follow.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
They have asked us to be more, I mean, they've been advising and helping, but Gary has to worry about that more with the high school or Tracy in terms of eligibility and graduation requirements.
Okay.
Okay, is there?
I have a question, please.
Okay, go ahead.
Is it Kim?
Yeah.
This is Kim Martinell. I have a question for Mr. Shipman, Mr. Howardfield, and Chief Iverson. So if the buses are limited to outside city limits, I would assume that there will be a lot of traffic. So do you have something in place for parents dropping off that bulk of children every day?
Well, I'll speak to that first because 80% of our kids have their own modes of transportation. There are a few kids that do ride the bus, not certainly as much as Mr. Shipman does. And so for the traffic that we see in our little area where you have a state highway going through your campus, I don't think it's going to be an issue, at least in our area, because that thing is a nightmare to begin with. And so the limited number of kids that we have that might come to school now in another mode isn't going to affect that for us, because we just don't have that many kids riding the bus. 85% or more of the kids riding the bus are elementary district kids.
Yeah. For us, it's a tremendous problem. It already is a problem. If any of you have dropped kids off at the elementary school, you know what I'm talking about. I've already started to address that. We're putting in Chris Manning with Ari Miller. Hopefully it's starting today if you're out there, Chris, listening. And Brian Longi
Please mute your phone.
With cement is starting a new sidewalk project. We already have made our drop-off much safer in the way it should have been a couple years ago. But we're doing that even more where when you come down the circular drive in the front of Parkview, you'll have to go way down to drop off your kid. It'll allow traffic to not be backed up on Cotton. That is a great point, Kim. I actually started this process with the whole social distancing, Sue and Megan, in mind, well before we even considered the whole busing situation. So it is going to help, but that is going to be an issue and a problem, drop off.
Okay, thank you.
We're hoping we can change our transportation level to include in-town kids, and we have a plan in place for that. We're just gonna see how things fall. We have to start someplace, and then hopefully we'll assess it and see if we can add in-town kids. And we do have an additional route added so we can take those kids home first after school and all those types of things. But anyway, there's a plan in place, hopefully we can get to it, so then it's not as much of an inconvenience for people, but right now, with social distancing and the requirements on the bus, that's the level we're gonna recommend we start.
Thank you, Gary.
This is Donnie. Tim,
Go ahead, Donnie.
that's a good question. That's a good question, Tim. I think that maybe Randy and I can get together, prior to see where we're at, a couple weeks before school starts, and maybe we can make a separate plan and use some other roads and some other streets to, kind of alleviate traffic in one area. But we'll cross that bridge.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Donnie. Thanks, Gary.
But the only thing I have left is masks.
I'd give Tracy from my school, do you have any comments or something you'd like to say?
I really don't have anything to add.
Okay, so with that said, go ahead.
I had a question about, do I need to come up
Your
here?
name again for Cindy?
Stephanie Osborne. About the level 1, 2, 3, and 4 from the schools. Has that been determined what level 2, what are the rules to be in level 2 and what bumps us to level 3? That hasn't been clear.
That maybe.
Well, I can answer that. Right now, we're in a COVID pandemic, and so we have lots of health safety things in place in level 2. Level 2 is really no different than level 1. Every one of our kids comes. We just have a ton of things in place for the safety and well-being of our staff and students.
Right, so what kicks us from a level 2 to, what are the determining factors? And I think it's probably a question for Sue and Dr. Evans, as in, is it based on cases? That's where I'm a little bit confused.
I agree. They'd have to let us know, just like when it first came about, we had to have some clarification on them. I don't think there is, I don't want to speak for you guys. I don't think there's a set number that, oh, you gotta have this many, you go to level 3 now. I don't think there is that.
And I think there's a ton of pressure on Dr. Evans and Sue, and I feel very bad for those gals. I think you've done a phenomenal job. But that is, Stephanie, what it'll come down to is, for me, and I think for Gary and Tracy and Linda, is when Sue says,
you can't have that many kids in school.
Yeah, you can't have that many kids in school, we need to ramp it up. And it could go, and I'm sorry, Sue, I hate to say it, but it could go from a level 2 immediately to a level 4.
Right.
You know, it could go from a level 2 back down to a 1. But I guess for me, there is no threshold in my plan. We never even talked about it. To me, it's what Sue tells us we have to do. And a while ago, I don't know if you remember, Sue, 3 weeks ago or so, I said, Sue, just so I know I'm on the right page with you, or I'm thinking, if we started school today, I'm assuming we'd be in a level 2. She said, absolutely. And I mean, we never talked like what that number is that would get us to that level 3. And so, if you guys want to.
Well, and I think we talked about, number of cases doesn't necessarily always mean anything. What if it's, 10 cases in a rest home?
Right.
Or 10 cases in the school.
Yeah.
That's totally different. We have an outbreak then in the school.
Situations with influenza were.
Yeah, exactly. So.
So many staff and students were sick. So that would be a clear indication.
But you're right.
Okay.
We've talked about that. I think Madison County had something about low, medium, and.
They have numbers
and they
related to their transmission routes, but I have tried to find how they got those numbers.
Okay.
And I think maybe something more will come out, like how many cases you have in your community. The problem is we're dealing with the whole county, and we have all these other schools that aren't necessarily affected by what's happening in Dillon or what's happening in Lima. That's really hard.
Right.
So you can't just go by cases in the county, I don't think either.
Okay, and that's kind of I think what, and I'm a parent of 2 kids in elementary. And so I'm thinking, okay, what am I preparing? What do I need to prepare for? And like when I went to the school board meeting, it's been a while, was when we still were under the 4 cases. And now we have a total of 40 something, 44, 41? 44. So that was 40 cases ago. And at that point, Randy Shipman said, we plan on going in at level 2. And that's wonderful. These kids need to be in school. So I guess the parents kind of need, and the thing is I can't say parents need to know, because you guys are back here, you know, putting all your energy and time in trying to figure this COVID out that a lot of us don't know much about. And you got the parents breathing, not necessarily breathing down your back, but probably these guys' backs. We need to know. So, I mean, are we seeing, if we, like you said, if we get 10 cases in a rest home, it doesn't warrant shutting the school down. But we had one teenage boy get a positive case, and we shut the whole entire Little League down, and there's not even a 17-year-old that plays Little League. So, in my mind, I'm thinking, oh man, these cases are rising, these poor kids are gonna be no meals, because when these kids come to school, that's their safe, I'm speaking for some kids, that's their safe place. That is their meal. Some of these kids don't get fed at home, and the program that we have to feed children that are hungry is it's a statewide program. I'm sure you guys know that. But it just makes it it breaks people's hearts to think, you know, we get a positive case, how we're going to pull these kids and put them back in these homes and they're not getting fed and not being educated. And I think, because I'm trying to make a decision for my family, and the rest of the world's doing the same thing. The rest of the county's doing the same thing. What am I supposed to do? Pull my kid out and homeschool him because there's no level 2, level 3, we don't know what that even is. These guys have, you know, worked so hard to figure out whatever level we're in, this is what we're gonna have to do. So let us know what, you know, like people are doing the work, we need to know what levels we're gonna be in, you know?
And I think that is a terrible spot to be in, and I feel for all of our parents. I do think that last year, when this first hit, of course, nobody really dealt with this since 1918 or whatever, is that I think whether the governor overreacted, underreacted, whatever people want to say, you know, it was made, and I know Sue had some tough decisions to make with a lot of us educators, and some weren't happy and some were happy and whatever, but we did it in mass, whereas I think now, I really trust Megan and Sue and their expertise, and I would think now that the governor would not shut everybody down. He's talked a lot about, you know, some counties have 0, and he's left, you know, local control to a large part to the local school boards, which is what he should do. I would think and hope that you guys would now look at that more carefully. And if Dillon has a bunch of cases, then we may be treated different than Lyman, whereas before the whole county was in on it. Would that be a fair statement? So in other words, like Megan said, if there's 10 in the rest home and it doesn't affect the schools, then why would we shut, or 30 in the rest homes, but not in the schools, why would we shut the schools down versus 20 in the schools? I would think that it would be different that way.
Yeah. I'm hoping it's more similar to like when we've had pertussis outbreaks.
Yes.
You know, we close that classroom, we do contact tracing. I'm hoping that's what it's like. I feel, I mean, I have young children too, and going through the remote learning was horrible. I think, and the benefits of kids being in school is there's so many of them, and anything you talk about is benefits versus risk. So I think what we're dealing with is a low risk for the kids. It's not the same for the teachers, but I think there's an awful lot of benefits about school. So I think if we can keep it safe and keep kids in school physically as much as possible, that's my goal too.
So that's what we're working towards, is keeping them in school.
I would hope so.
I mean, that's,
yeah.
Okay.
The benefits are so clear.
This is Don, everything if I could. Speaking both in my position, my professional position, and being a parent too, is I hope that people aren't putting all this emphasis on the school or public health, also giving them answers to you know, what they need to do as a family. I think we're getting into a position too where a lot of people are looking for answers. Well, unfortunately, there's no playbook, there's no instruction book on it, so it's being written as we go along. So I think we all need to, as parents, be willing to, you know, make decisions for ourselves as well, because everyone else is in you know, their own different situation. I firmly believe school needs to start. I think that people need to be there, but I also know that there's parents out there, including myself, that are struggling with other issues that are related to that. So I don't think all the answers come from the school, I don't think all the answers come from public health or government. And so, as parents, people need to take responsibility and make those decisions based on themselves. As I feel the school and the public health are doing everything that they possibly can to get those answers out there. But, you know, we just have to realize there's not answers on a lot of this stuff. So, you know, I think personal responsibility is going to have to take the lion's share of what your decisions are.
No, thanks, Tony.
Yeah, I completely agree with that, and I think a lot of people are looking at the school board and at the public health for answers because we've been told to do so many other things that they naturally now are saying, well, what do we do?
Right.
Because you've made all the other rules for us, for our businesses, for our, whatever this is. And so they're looking to ask somebody because we're not making decisions for ourselves in other aspects of this pandemic, so that they're looking to the school board, like, tell me, because I've been told everything else, I'm not being allowed to make my decisions elsewhere, so, but I agree with Donnie. I think that, ultimately, it is gonna be up to me what happens to my children, what I do, what my children do, what my family does with it, but if I could be a voice and be heard and ask questions and help others, make those decisions or just get the information so they can make the decisions, that's what my goal to do.
Thank you.
So, thank you.
Okay, with that topic,
Can I make one last, again,
just short.
Sarah Hartman, parent, business owner, yes, a pastor's wife. I am not anti-mask. I want it to be known that I really do think we should strongly encourage kids to wear masks. But I think that a mandate would be very difficult on our teachers and on our kids and cause undue anxiety and stress in that department. The second thing would be, along the same lines as Stephanie, we just really would love your guys' word that you're committed to keeping school open at a very, whatever level that might be. I guess we just need to know that as parents we can make that choice and that the kids at the extreme ends have options, whether to be fully from home or to do something completely different, but that all of us in the middle that really want our kids in school to keep the school open as long as possible. We have your word that you're committed to that.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, I'd like to thank Gary and Randy and Tracy and Linda, people from the schools, for coming today, and I don't envy your position at all. You've got a lot of thought process that's went into
Tom,
this
if I may ask,
Go ahead, Gary.
I just wonder would it be appropriate for the school folks to meet with Sue and Megan about masks? There was some discussion about maybe there's some places where it should be, they should be worn and others that they don't need to. Do you guys feel that would be appropriate at this time to have a discussion about, you and I talked about in our school, what about passing times, about the commons area? And now that we've had this discussion, I think it would be appropriate, at least in my opinion, which may not mean much, that we sit down and discuss those specifics about what we can and should be doing. Because I want to give I have to give direction to our school board on August 10th.
Go ahead.
And so I just want to make this point clear. I am not a Board of Health member. I'm a technical advisor. So these big decisions will be Board of Health decisions, not my decision. So I just want to make that clear. So we will bring all that information. Some of the little stuff.
So we could meet with you guys and you could discuss it with these guys?
Yeah.
Okay. I'd be happy to meet with the board too, but I'm sure you guys got things to do.
Well, I think that we would give them the information and our recommendations and they can make the decision.
Randy.
And thank you for this opportunity, and we don't envy your position, and because I can never get a hold of Sue, and Dr. Evans, community affairs, call if you need to. That's next week.
Yeah.
And I'm just kidding, I get a hold of Sue all the time, she's been wonderful to work with, but we don't envy your position. Thank you guys for what you're doing for all of us.
So Sue, when you get a chance, just, look at your schedule, we'll work around your schedule, and we're all busy, but you guys just want.
Okay, thanks very much for coming.
Thank you.
All the individuals from the school, for sure. Thank you. Okay, next on the agenda is discussion upcoming events. And if anybody needs to slip out, feel free to do so. You won't disrupt the meeting.
Can I mention something? Whoever in charge of your Zoom meeting, you have the authority to mute everybody.
It's not Zoom.
It's not
a Zoom.
Oh, there you go.
It's a conference call.
Okay.
Okay, for discussion upcoming events, Joan, are you still on? Joan Grogan?
Yes, Randy and I are both here.
Okay, I'll let her lead. Joan, would you lead on your discussion, what event is, what date it is, that type of thing, please?
Our event is the 15th annual Friends of NRA fundraising banquet. We have rescheduled to the Shopco building. I would have to say we were probably one of the instigators of opening that. We're just looking for permission to proceed. We're looking at September 26th. There's a lot of things that we need to put into place that require longer than just a couple weeks. We realize that things could change that date, but we're basically, we've got a letter to Sue that says we're willing to put masks and shields and gloves and sanitizing stations and purchase the appropriate thermometers to maintain what we normally do and keep some semblance of normal life. Our target seating was 400. We've already brought that back to 300. And if you've been in the Shopco building, that shouldn't be a problem for social distancing. Just something that we normally do, raises funds for local applicants, people across the state of Montana. Beaverhead Shooting Sports has been a common recipient. We just kind of need to have somebody okey-dokey to proceed with what we need to do.
Okay, Joan, have you met one-on-one with Sue or those at the Shopco building?
I have not met with Sue at the Shopco building.
I think that would be a plus to meet with these people at the building and then see one-on-one what's there. You got it?
Okay.
Yes.
I think they need to submit a written proposal.
I think
they ask everyone.
And there's a written proposal out there, if I'm not mistaken.
I think I sent it to you guys.
Yeah, there is a written proposal out there. With that written proposal, I mean, standing right there means a lot. I think so. Coordinate that and get the rodeo and the fair and all that met similar. So with that type of event, I think it needs to be a on-site look over for sure. So, and do that and get that done as soon as possible.
We'll do that as soon as after the meeting. Just give us a call and we'll set up a time.
Yeah.
Is this something we would vote on then after that, or?
Well, at least, I'm not sure. I mean, it depends on your approval, but still, you need to, have you ever been in the Shopko building? No.
Not since it's been.
It's not since it's opened up bigger, so I think it'd be far, far better if you went on site. It's big in here, there's no doubt about that. Anyway, but I think you need to meet on site, so contact each other and start with that. And take the written proposal with you so you can reference off of that.
Okay, we'll leave that in your part. Just give me a call and we'll set up a time, okay?
Okay.
Okay, any other upcoming events to address? Sue?
Well, I know that I've gotten a couple of emails regarding some roping events and a couple of other things. Too, and I think I saw my email where I don't have time to look at all these plans. So I don't know what you want me to do. Do you want me to just send them all to you guys? You can look at it. If there's concerns, you can let me know, and then
I can tell them, I don't know. I'm kind of at a loss right now. What to do.
I guess I have one thought. We have had a number of events, you know, the rodeo, the fair board, and those people have gotten protocols in place. Isn't there any way we could just get permission to just hand those on to some of these groups? I mean, they've done other ropings, they've done other things. Someone else has created this wheel. You shouldn't have to redo it with every group. If there's a previous protocol, we can just say, this is what you need to do for this type of event. Is that possible?
Because you're referring to whatever it's done before. Well, I guess I just wonder if we should just say as a board, like, these are the things we want you to follow. And if you can follow those, then you can consider that your event should happen, but within certain parameters.
Yeah, that's my thought, is if we can harvest some of those protocols that groups have done up to now, so you can just hand them off. And then, that being said, it puts the burden on the sponsoring organization or agency or whatever, but I really feel that's appropriate. My understanding is, even with businesses, if you choose not to wear masks, like some of the audience have chosen not to have their mask on, you know, there's a burden of liability for the business. And so I would think the same thing would be for these organizers of the events, that, you know, they're gonna have to follow these protocols. And then if they are not in place and there is a problem, understand that there's potential liability back to that organization. So number one, put some of the burden back on themselves to protect. And then I agree with, I think Donnie said on the conference call, I think then there's a burden on people that want to attend these events to choose which level of risk they're willing to endure, because those events, like schools, cannot ensure 100% protection. But, you know, to circle back around, if we've got some of these protocols in place, let's just hand them on so you don't have to recreate.
So we're not approving or disapproving. That's where, you know, I get it. It's like, I'm not comfortable doing that anymore.
You know, I would say maybe there's a breakover if it's a huge event. I mean, the fair, the rodeo, these are huge events. Those need to come here. But these smaller things, and I don't know what number, I guess I would say less than 300. I mean, I pulled that number out of the hat. If we can just hand them an existing protocol and say, this is now on you.
It's true.
It'd be way easier.
Any other discussion on upcoming events? Seeing none. Old business, approval of the July 17th minutes. The minutes have been completed. And really the only thing I noticed in them was need to be gone through. There's, there's Jamie typed these, and there's for instance, Bergeson. Some places it says Bergeson's, and it says the initial in front. Other places spelled out. Just gone through it. Don't put like Shoemaker. They put Shoemaker, and then the other one, the initial Shoemaker. Those two names. Other than that, I think it reads fine. Just that's my only addition or correction. Myself. So I'm looking for a
Given
motion to
Tom's
approve.
correction to the minutes or comments on the minutes, I move that we approve them.
Need a second?
I second.
Okay, I got a first and a second to approve the minutes with correction. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Both same sign, motion passed. Okay, next, public discussion, comments on subjects under Board of Health jurisdiction not on the agenda. Is there any? Hearing, seeing none. Next, at the last meeting, George Warner brought up that he was going to bring something in and present it to myself, and he did. Came in on after the commission meeting on 7/20/20, and he signed this. Passed, you know, presented it to myself. I signed, and I gave each board member a copy as we speak. Carla, I will send one up to Lima as far as that goes, and then you can go over it. And at this time, read, it says, administrative appeal and variances form, then it says basis of appeal, and then it says, an interlocal agreement between the city of Dillon, town of Lima, and the county of Beaverhead to cooperate in the provision of health services, does not have autonomous authority to declare, regulate, or enforce health regulations, whether statutory or under independent rule, without having obtained approval from the appropriate local jurisdiction. So I myself have had Jed glance at it. I'm asking down in number 7, George said he obtained 2 documents from the city of Dillon. He's written here, and we don't have such an item. So I'm asking, you know, this is a group effort, means we're in this thing together. If you could produce those documents for us, so we could go over that. And then Lima, look in your archives of old files and that type of stuff, for stuff that pertains to Board of Health. We'll do the same, and I'd ask the city of Dillon to do that. And then I was instructed to pass this on to MACO, our Montana Association of County legal staff, and that, because they're struggling very bad with this and what is it, section 50? Or something like that, of an MCA code. Okay, well, they're trying to get clarity because there's confusion in this appeal form and their thoughts. So, but if you, any information that the city of Dillon can provide to help sort out what you've written would be extremely valuable. So, I just leave it at that. Jed couldn't be here today, so he isn't here today, and he's tied up in something else. But is there any other? I'll just leave it at that, because I really know nothing. George.
Yeah, I could clarify a little bit of the comment.
But they're asking for it in paper. If you
Oh, that's fine. No, I can do that. I just hadn't heard any response, so but that's why I was intending to see what your plan was. I can supply the documents that I currently have,
okay,
which is the original agreement and the amended bylaws from October of last year. That's all I have.
okay.
So the rest of them, the county should have the financial data, et cetera. And, yeah, if we can set up a hearing, then,
well, if we just bring those in.
Sure.
Bring me those copies, and then I'll forward them on to like Mako.
I'll make sure you have them on Monday.
If you get those, anything that Lima can come up with, or Dillon can come up with, or we can come up to go clear back as far as this reads, is really puzzling. So, thank you, George.
And all I gave him was I got the resolution out of our file that pretty much started the process. And then I had no copies at all on the actual agreement. So we came up to the county and got it from the clerk and recorder's office.
Yeah.
So
Well,
you guys should have it, so dig it up.
We're, so far, that, you know, this is a low priority. That's basically. So, anyway, I'll just leave it at that. And next, the meeting schedule, tentatively next meeting. Is there a meeting?
14th.
What is it?
Do you want to do that?
Do you want it August 14th or not?
But I will not be here,
Okay.
but that is me.
How about the 21st?
It's up to you guys.
7 days out, it'd be the 21st.
I won't be here on the 14th.
Okay, that's a board member, and Sue. Would the 21st work, Nicole?
Yes.
Everyone else? We'll shoot, we'll ask Carly to shoot for the 21st here at 11 o'clock. We gotta get approval from the court, the secretary of the state. Okay, any new business to address? Tom? You come up front, Tom, and then for those that might not know you like I do, would you introduce yourself? Speak up pretty loud.
Tom Meganette, Beaverhead County Disaster and Emergency Services. I'd like to open up a discussion on any kind of plan that we have for the county courthouse, public facilities, and county employees. because we have a problem here of being in our offices and people just walk into this building not wearing masks and just kind of step right into our offices, and I think focus required for the signage on the building.
We have, some offices have a few masks to provide, that type of thing, but they'll get past and get in, because as always, there's no guard at the door as such. So we'll have to bring that up at the next commission meeting and make a decision there as far as the building, we'll go from there. But it was brought up the other day, so.
It's an issue.
You know, it's an issue, and there's so many entrances and they come drifting in, and, you know, and the other day it was some fellow from out of state, but he got in, so we'll bring it up, come Monday, I'll bring it up at the commission meeting. Yeah, Dave.
State of Colorado Beaverhead County Disaster and Emergency Services, it's not as frequently people coming from out of the building, it's frequently our coworkers that are refusing to wear masks outside of their office.
Yeah, mute your phones, mute your phones, mute your phones. Okay, go ahead, Sadie.
I was saying that it's not necessarily people coming from outside of the building, they've been pretty respectful of it, it's generally our own coworkers, the 3 commissioners included, that are not wearing masks outside of their office. They're making those of us that are following the rules uncomfortable. Some of us do have medical conditions, we have elderly people in our families we're trying to protect, all of those things, and the onus is on you to enforce this and the directive, and you're not, and you're setting a bad example because you are not following it, and neither are your cohorts. That's my concern.
Well, like I said, we'll bring it up at the commission meeting, hash it over. So, is there any other new business? Or anything? Any comments? None. Any new business or comments over the conference call? I got a lot to say, but not much. Okay. With that said, motion to adjourn, I guess.
Move to adjourn.
We got a first and a second to adjourn the meeting. We'll tentatively meet August 21st, 11 o'clock.
Thank you.
And you'll receive an email if we confirm that.
O'clock.